Welcome to Digital Cafe. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Teresa. Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning.
Hi, Andrew.
Digital Cafe. What is it? Well, effectively, if you don't know who I am, my name is Andrew Mills. I run Data Mills. I also run Digital Cafe. And in doing so, Digital Cafe is really about trying to have a helpful, creative environment, which basically helps businesses. So Hannah, I've known for some time. Mark, I've known some time. Teresa works for me, which is great. So what we're going to cover this morning? Well, effectively, we're just going to do a little bit about the hints and tips around cyber, but the main focus is about planning for 2021. So in a bit, I'm going to get Mark to explain who he is and what we're going to get out of this morning. But before then, I just want to sort of say, look, if you want to know what Digital Cafe is, please go ahead, Google Digital Cafe Network. You'll find that we normally meet in the old library at Attercliffe, but obviously this year's, I don't know what plans you might have had in place, but they've probably been turned upside down somewhat. But you'll find that, yes, we've got events coming up, and we've got one in January next year, which is on building your brand. So again, we do have a social media channel. At the same time, we've got a Digital Cafe website. And more importantly, I suppose at this moment, we've got a Digital Cafe Network YouTube channel. So this event is being recorded. It's going to be uploaded. We've got the October one and the November one, which is now live. And there are just some helpful bits and bobs up there. So please go and check that out. Most importantly, love you to just subscribe. It says 14 on the slide. We're up to 19. It'd be nice to get 25 by the end of December. Let's see what we can do. So, Mark, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us at the Digital Cafe event.
No problem, Andrew. Thank you for asking me.
That's all right. How long have we known each other now?
It's probably getting on for 4 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think it's fair to say that, I started working with you because I was at the end of my tether. I was that busy idiot running around in circles, not knowing where to go, got to the end of my tether, knowing I've got to the end of myself. How do I need to do two things. I either need to quit and stop messing about, or do it and get down and do some and move this thing forward. And I think from my point of view, things are starting to turn the corner and things are looking good. And thank you. But tell us about this morning, who you are, where you're from, and what's all this about today?
Okay, thanks, Andrew. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, hasn't it? And it's really good to see that your business is in a really good place now. And in essence, that's what I do with all my clients. I work as a business coach, which means I help local businesses around Sheffield and Doncaster define where they want to go and then build a really robust plan to get there, and then help them walk along that path so that in essence, what we're doing is just taking out all the roadblocks that are in the way so that the businesses I work with can get where they want to go. Now, that sounds a little bit vague, but that's because every business is different. Every business wants to get to a different place. Some people want to sell their business. Some people want to build it and turn it into a legacy thing for family. Some people just want to do really good things with their business for their local communities or a specific part of society. So what I wanted to bring today to go through with you guys at Digital Cafe is one of the fundamental things that you need to do in order to be able to get your business to where you want it to go. This is something that we do every year and every 90 days with the businesses I work with. And basically, it's getting a plan together that you can actually execute that will get your business a quarter or a year's worth of time further towards your goal. Now, depending on the business, sometimes a couple of years is enough. Sometimes it takes longer. But whatever it is, as long as you set where you want to go and you start walking down that path, you'll get there eventually. And today, what we're going to do is just go through how you build and set a plan that you can execute for 2021 and the first quarter, so you can make a quarter of the progress you need to in order to get to where you want to go this time next year.
So, Hannah, where are you from? What would you like to get out of today?
So I'm the managing director of Enable Unity, which is a community interest company supporting people with disabilities to improve their leisure opportunities. today is exactly what it says on the tin: getting your business in order, new plans, new year, getting everything sorted for 2021, because we've not been delivering any services since the March lockdown due to the pandemic. So it was a good opportunity to take some time out to actually look at where we want to be, action plans that need putting in place, and all of that.
Very good, thank you. So, Mark, you highlighted earlier these were the things that we were planning to cover.
Yep.
So I suppose I'll start off with a quick quote. So again, this is Abraham Lincoln. Give me 6 hours to chop a tree down, and I'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. Would you say that's a good quote?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at what you're trying to do, we have a principle that says be times do equals have. And there's the reason that's a formula, the reason the multiplication sign is in there is because if you do 10 out of 10 in terms of your doing, but only 1 out of 10 in terms of your being, who you are, what you learn, what you develop, you'll get a result. You'll get 10 of whatever it is that you're looking for in the have column. But if you can actually improve how you do stuff, who you are, what you learn, how your team learns, how good your team is at certain things, as well as doing the do, then actually you get a much bigger result. So yeah, completely, I'd fully agree with this. It's a really important principle that says you can keep doing what you're doing and you'll keep getting what you're getting. But if you can improve, if you can learn, if you can sharpen your own axe and that of your team, then things just grow exponentially.
So with that, with no more ado then, Mark, I'll pass over to you, and over to you. Yes.
Thank you. Right, so let me see if I can get the screen sharing sorted. Andrew, would you allow me to share screen, and I'll bring up the slides?
Do I need to do it on
I think I'm okay now. Let's just see if this works. There we go. Okay, can you see the cover slide now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, brilliant. So, new year and new plans. The reason I wanted to pick up on this, every year it's good to look at your business. Every business has a different year. But at this point, when we come to the end of 2020 and we start 2021, it's been a really tumultuous year for most businesses. Some businesses have been working really hard and having to perform under really tough circumstances if they're busy supporting the NHS or food supply or whatever it is. Other businesses have seen exactly the opposite, and trade has pretty much completely stopped in a lot of cases. So a year that nobody could have predicted, a year that has taken a significant toll on most businesses, employees and business owners, but one that we're coming to the end of, and we now need to start thinking about, okay, so what do we do next? The businesses that have survived, the businesses that have got to this point, what are we going to do next in order to get back on track to where we wanted to go in the longer term, but also to make sure that 2021 is a really successful year for your business? So I'm going to cover a few things today. As we said earlier on in the session, we're going to be picking up on a few key things that are going to help you make progress for 2021. First of all, we're going to look at the destination framework, which is where do you want to be in 12 months' time? From now to the end of 2021, what do you want to be different and better about your business compared to where you are now? Then we're going to look at how we can get it done, how we can actually make progress along this. And then we're going to get into the depth of what we actually have to do to sustain that progress, make it and sustain it. We'll have time at the end for a few questions and answers. So yeah, we'll get on with it. And given that we're a relatively small group, if you have questions, if you have comments or things that you want to talk about, just feel free to stick your hand up or put something in the chat box, or just interrupt so that we can take questions as we go as well. So first of all, when you start thinking about what you want to be better or different within your business in a year's time, there's two really important things you need to get your head around. And just like with any journey, you need to know your start point. Where are you right now? and you need to know the end point. Where do you want to get to? Now, what I do with all clients, all the businesses I start working with, is we actually set an endpoint a little bit further out than a year. We set an endpoint either 3 or 5 years into the future. But let's concentrate just for now on where you want to get to by the end of 2021. So if we're trying to plan a journey, for example, from Sheffield to Snowdonia, a journey that's got loads of different potential routes. It's got lots of things that might cause diversions depending on what time of day we set off or where we go or which route we follow. And it's got lots of things that could change as we go through this journey. But what shouldn't change, what won't change, is where you want to get to. We want to end up in Snowdonia in around 4 hours from when we set out from Sheffield. And that's the most important thing to work out, first of all, for your business for the next 12 months. Where are you now? What's the start point? And that will have changed over the last 12 months. Most people's start points right now are not where they expected them to be. So you need to understand what your start point is, and you need to understand what your destination is, where you want to get to by this time next year. What you can then do is look at and understand what we call the moving parts of your business. What you'll see on the screen in front of you is a tool I use with a lot of clients called an orbit chart. You can look this up on the web. If anybody wants a copy of this, you can email me afterwards and I'll send you a copy you can use. But basically what this does, it allows you to define your journey. So the circle in the center is where you are now. And each concentric ring as you go out is a period of time over which you want to improve or change your business. Now, this is what we use for the longer term planning. So in this case, this is an example that would cover 4 years from now. So we're here in the center. This is end of year 1, end of year 2, end of year 3, end of year 4. And what I'd urge you to do, if you're looking at longer term planning, is just identify the vital few things that are the moving parts of your business. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you take this example, the vertical line always is turnover and operating profit. Hannah, I know that you're a CIC, but you still need to make money. Even non-profits need to make money, because non-profit doesn't mean not generating cash and money. It means plowing it back into the good things that the charity or the CIC wants to do. So if we look at this, the vertical line is always turnover and operating profit. What I've then found, as I've done this with probably around 25, 30 businesses now, is that I haven't yet found a business that's got more than 7 moving parts. And that's not just because there's 7 spokes on this. Generally, we don't introduce the idea of the spokes until we've worked out what the moving parts are. I've not yet found one that's more complex than 7 moving parts. So what do I mean by moving parts? Well, these are the things that make your business work. So if your business is based on selling things to other businesses, then 2 of your moving parts might be your sales process and might be your marketing. If your business is a manufacturing company, then operational excellence might be one of your spokes, one of your moving parts, just as supply chain might be. For most businesses, there'll be something about team and team development as one of their moving parts, whether that's number or skill base or the range of skills that the team has, or just team development in terms of how people want to develop over this period of time. One of your moving parts, one of your spokes might be how you as a business owner develop over a period of time. So take some time, first of all, to understand where you are now, where you want to get to, and what the most important, the vital few things are for your business that will have a material impact on how you get there. Okay, so for most businesses, it will be some form of demand management, whether that's sales, whether that's subscriptions, whatever it might be. For most businesses, it will be some form of operational measurement. So how well are we delivering this? How much can we deliver? What capacity do we have? And for most businesses, it will involve people and people development. Then there'll probably be some very specific things for your business. but I've never yet found one that can't distill the essential moving parts of their business to 7 or less spokes. And generally, when we build this chart, we can fill 6 or 7, and we're actively looking for an 8th, which sometimes we fill, sometimes we don't. So as you look longer and you understand where you want to go, start thinking about what are the vital few things that need to be dealt with, improved, introduced in order to get you there. Now, again, this diagram is a longer term one. This is a 4-year one, and we're going to go straight back to 12 months now. But the principle is exactly the same. Where are you now? Where do you want to be at this time next year? And what are the vital few moving parts of your business that you need to address to get you there? Oops. So when we talk about destination framework, which is the first element of what we're dealing with today, there's a few key rules. First of all, know your start point, know your end point. Until you know where you're starting from, and until you know where you're going to get to, then it's really difficult to map out the journey. Next, understand what the vital few elements of your business are. Now, that sounds really basic. In fact, all of this sounds really basic, but you'd be surprised how many businesses don't do this. If you can understand the moving parts of your business, you can then develop your ideas around what they need to be at the end point, whether your end point's in 12 months, 24 months, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is. So know you start and end point, understand your moving parts, and understand what they need to be at the end point. So as an example, if one of your moving parts is number of customers, if you have 50 now, and at your end point, you need 150, we know that over the course of that period, we need a mechanism to recruit another 100 customers. Again, it sounds really simple, and it is, but most businesses don't do that. And point number 4, depending on the business, again, depending on the size of the business, get your team involved. Again, it sounds really simple. Why wouldn't you tell your team where the business was going? Why wouldn't you let your team know what the future looked like for the business in which they're working? Well, it sounds simple and it sounds like common sense, but unfortunately, common sense isn't common practice. And the number of businesses I come across where the teams that work in the business have no idea as to where it's going is unbelievable. So if you can enroll your team in the journey, it makes it a lot easier on you, and it also makes it a lot more fun, and it makes it a lot more involving for the people that work for you. So that's the first part. It is very simple, but most businesses don't do it. But that's great because it means that you can. So we're going to move on to getting it done now. So what I find with the majority of the businesses I start working with, and generally I work with MDs, sometimes MDs and management teams, is that they kind of understand where they want to go and they understand what they need to do, but actually they're struggling because they're trying to do it all themselves. Or maybe there's just 1 or 2 key people in the business that are trying to do it all themselves. And a large part of getting it done is making sure that everybody who works within the business has a really focused view of what they do and how it contributes to the end point. So I'm going to talk you through a tool here that you can use if you're that MD, if you're the person who knows what they need to do but can't get it done because there's just not enough of you to do it. This is how you can consider what you want to do about that. We call this the skill fun matrix. So what we have at the left-hand side is a measure of how skilled you need to be to do a particular job. What we have along the bottom axis, the x-axis, is how much you enjoy it, the fun you get from that job. And when we look at this, what we find is the less skilled the job and the least fun it is, probably the less productive, the less valuable it is for your business. So if we take perfect example, let's take cleaning the office, for example. That's going to be basic work. It needs to be done. It's not massively high skilled, and most people who work in a business won't enjoy doing that kind of work. And it fits in the sort of £10 an hour bracket in terms of getting it done for your business. If we look a little bit further out, we can start to think about other activities which actually have a massive payback for your business if you do them repeatedly and do them well. So if we think about it, £1,000 an hour is not something you would pay necessarily for something within your business, but it is something that you could generate value to your business for. So, for example, I was talking to a client the other week, and one of the business leaders, there's two, one of them had managed to delegate some tasks to a team member, which meant that they were able to get involved with their sales director. And actually, they managed not just to land a new contract, but to land a new contract at a much higher rate and with more value to be delivered to the customer than they otherwise would have been. Now, this guy's involvement helped do that. And that's what we talk about when we talk about a value to the business that is thousands of pounds an hour. So this guy who delegated 2 or 3 hours worth of work and then got involved with this other activity where he was highly skilled in understanding what the customer wanted to do, and he also really enjoyed it, ended up landing a contract that if you put it, if you divide the value of the contract into the amount of time they put in, the uplift from him doing it was probably £15,000-20,000 worth an hour. So when we look at this, it is a mix of cost and it's a mix of value, but just think about it from your perspective and the tasks you do. What tasks do you have that are very low skill, very low fun, and you just have to do them anyway? Again, another company that I started working with a while back, the owner of the company was cleaning the loos at the end of every day. And they were kind of doing it from the perspective of, well, I don't want to have to pay somebody else to do it. We kind of get that, but that's not a great reason. Their other reason was a little bit more altruistic, which said, I won't ask my staff to do anything that I'm not prepared to do. And I get that. I can understand that. But on the other hand, this guy was in quite a creative role. They were a creative business, and this guy was cleaning the loos every day, and it was starting to build up a sense of frustration, a sense of resentment, a sense of I don't want to do this, I shouldn't be doing this, which was killing the creative part of his role, at least for the last 2 hours of the afternoon. And so all the stuff that he could have been doing over here, he wasn't doing in those last couple of hours just because of something over here. And he might have been saving himself a tenner an hour, and he might have been giving a good example to the staff. But to be honest, I challenge that, because if you're on board a ship, you don't really want to see the captain running around stoking the engines. It gives completely the wrong idea about how well the ship is being run. So when we get into the next bit, you might find that you've got other tasks that you do that actually are more valuable. And actually, when we get into some of the situations where the owner or the MD is doing tasks that only they can do, but they really don't enjoy. Now, this is stuff that you're going to have to keep doing. If it's vital to running the business, you're still going to have to keep doing it, but it's something that in the future you might want to think about training somebody else to do, because whilst it's very valuable, you don't enjoy it. So if there's too much of this, it can cause exactly what we talked about with the guy who was cleaning the loos. It can cause you doing this to actually lose sight of what you can do up here. It kills your mindset, it kills your emotional energy, it kills your work energy, because this takes a lot out of you because you really don't enjoy it. So you have to do it for now, but it might be worth thinking about how you can deal with that. Then we get onto the really good bit. The stuff that you do that you really enjoy, that is high skill level, that is pushing the limits of what you can do, but is a great challenge to you. This will be the stuff that brings the great returns. There's just one other element of this I want to look at as well, because running a business, it should be fun. It should be enjoyable. It should be challenging, but it should be good. It shouldn't feel like wading through treacle or a drag. So let's look at this little task over here. There's not a great deal of skill involved in it, but you really enjoy it. Now, how can this be £1,000 an hour work if the skill level is low? I'm going to give you an example. A client I worked with 2 or 3 years ago, the MD most of what they billed and invoiced was paid electronically. It was either paid on credit card or by bank transfer. But there was one customer that every month brought a bag of coins into the business and handed over a bag of cash to the MD, who then had to travel 6 or 7 miles into the nearest town to take it to the bank. And it would take him 3 or 4 hours. And one of the first things I said to him was, why on earth are you doing this? It's actually not worth the money. By the time you've put the money in the bank and wasted your time and messed about with the banking, and this guy never turns up on time to pay you anyway, all the profit has gone, and actually this is probably costing you money to service this guy. And he just said to me, you know what, I really, really love the feeling of taking some money into the bank and putting it physically into my bank account. Okay, so how much is that feeling worth to you, because you're losing money doing this? He said, yeah, but when I get that feeling, I walk to a little cafe around the corner and I'm feeling really good, and I can work out what I want to do for the next month, and I've got my next month plan sorted, and I'm getting really excited about my business again. Because that simple task put him in the right frame of mind to do that. So what it was, when we looked at this, it wasn't about the taking the money to the bank and cashing it in. It was the fact that it put him in a mental state where he could start thinking about, how do I do more of this? So whilst that task is actually down here because it was losing him money, what it did, it enabled these tasks because it's high fun. And we all need some of that. You know that feeling when you're in flow with your work, whatever you do, if you can get into flow with your work, if you're enjoying it, if you're loving it, if it's the purpose, if it's the thing you want to do, things come off it as well. Things spin off. You get lots of other ideas that help you build and grow your business as you go. So don't neglect the fun stuff, even if it's low skill. You're allowed to keep some of these activities as well as focusing on these, because this is what puts you in the frame of mind to make the most of these. It's more important to think about these tasks, the ones that are very high skill that you hate, because these do the exact opposite. Okay, so this is your skill fund matrix as the MD, the owner of the business. So what can we do about it? You've got all these tasks. You've probably got too many tasks, and the things that get lost by the wayside are these, which are the really important ones because you're too busy doing these. So what can we do about that? Right. The beauty of this is not necessarily in understanding your own task. It's understanding what to do about these once you've identified them. So if you think about it, you build a team within your business. So what can you do about these tasks? Well, the next thing to do is to cascade this idea. Once you've done your own skill fund matrix, ask the next person in line in whatever activity this is to do theirs as well. Because what you tend to find as we go through this is that your skill fund matrix and their skill fund matrix aren't the same. So if we look at how that works, if this second skill fund matrix is your team members, all the stuff that you consider to be low skill, all the stuff that you don't particularly enjoy because you were doing that years ago and now you want to do more of this, could well for a team member actually be the top right corner of their skill fund matrix. If they need to learn something, if they need to build and develop skills to do what you do as a routine, this can be a good challenge, a good new challenge for them. Everybody is different in terms of what they like and what they dislike doing. So try and find the team member that enjoys doing what you don't and hand it over to them, because the cascade can work all the way through. Excuse me. Let's just move this through. And then eventually you see that team member may also have somebody who else within the business who can take these jobs on, because everybody has some of these jobs. Now we did this, I started working with a firm in Sheffield 2 or 3 years ago. And the biggest problem they had was that the founder of the firm was just about to leave. And the joint MDs who had been preparing for that day and were going to run the company when the founder left, felt that they just didn't have the time, the bandwidth to be able to do all the extra stuff that they hadn't been doing. So the first thing we looked at was how to build time and bandwidth for them. And we did exactly this exercise. So what we found was that we looked at their skill fund matrix and what they needed to pass on. We looked at the next level down. One was a technical. We did it in 2 different phases. One was technical, one was administration. and we distributed the jobs to people who actually got really excited about having a change, having something new, having something different, better, and more challenging to do. And then eventually, through admin and technical, there were a few jobs that nobody was doing. So what did they do about that? They brought in an apprentice, because even those basic jobs about how to run a business allowed them to bring in an apprentice. So if you think about what just happened, we took some work and some tasks away from the MDs. And how did we get them done? We brought in an apprentice. Now, if you think about that, there's not many MDs that can say, right, I'm going to stop doing that and I'll get the apprentice to do it. And in truth, we didn't do that. What we did, we passed that down to the next level of competence within the business and took a look at what was in their low bottom left area, their skill fund matrix. Then we took that and passed that down to the next level. And eventually there was some tasks left over that were in this bottom corner that were perfect to bring an apprentice into the business. That apprentice is now likely to become one of their managers of the future, because they've had a great introduction to the business, and we've done this a couple of times since, and the apprentice has managed to grow through too. It's a really cool way, not just of looking at what's on your plate and thinning it out, but also developing your people, developing your teams, and giving people that sense that there is succession here. It's also a great way of making sure that when you bring people into the business, you can bring people in who are willing and ready to learn on the basic stuff and grow through to the more complex stuff. So when we talk about getting it done, what you generally find is that if you talk to a business owner about, right, this is your plan, how are you going to get it done? I don't know, I haven't got time. And that's true. I don't know any business owner or MD that is going to say, yeah, I've got 2 days a week I can put into that. Not a problem. Because their plate's already full. That's the kind of people they are. So they haven't got time. They need to make time. And this is a great way of doing it. So I'm just going to pause for a minute there, just on those first two things, destination framework and getting it done. Are there any thoughts, comments, or questions?
I can see personally, Mark, how that could affect how you said you could do that within a team, because effectively sometimes there is that time when you've got everything's on your desk and you want to put a couple of bricks under one leg and sort of slide it onto somebody else's desk, and then. But I suppose instead of just passing the jobs on willy-nilly, you are actually building that sort of the fun side in there, and obviously looking at the skill side of it, and obviously then mapping out how that could work. So I can definitely see that this might be a conversation I need to have with yourself with regards to our business. But yeah, no, I appreciate what you're saying with this. It's good.
And to be honest, Andrew, you've done this
in some shape or form, maybe not using the same table, but yeah.
No, that's right. But when you look at the apprentices,
so you've not got the medical evidence, and you've not sent this off to your DSA.
Okay, there's something coming through.
Yep.
Okay, no worries. So, but when you look at how you've brought apprentices into your organization, we may not have mapped them out exactly on this framework, but this is exactly what you've done. And we're doing it again now with your next potential apprentice, depending on how that works, aren't we?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Absolutely, we can put it into this framework, but it's one of those things that gets involved in the DNA of the business. Once you start to understand that actually virtually every task within a business can either be stopped or it can be something that can be valuable to somebody within the business, even if that's bringing somebody in to learn how to do it, then if you can put it in its place of most value, it's also the place that will get you the best results. Okay, so moving on, let's look at making progress. Now, I'm a massive believer in the idea of marginal gains. Now, I know a couple of you have seen this before, but just out of interest, if somebody offered you £1 million now, or 1 pence a day doubled every day for a month, which would you choose? Shout out. Oh, Teresa, I can see you talking, but you're on mute, I think.
I know that the second one would make you more money, but I would take the £1 million now.
Yep, fair enough.
Because you don't know how things will change.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let's say this is guaranteed. Any other offers on that one?
I mean, first time I saw this, it was very much like, yeah, I'll take £1 million, please, because it's like that's money in my pocket now.
Mm.
So they'll be able to let you know.
Okay.
when you should hear from
So
them.
what actually happens? Let's just take a look at this, shall we?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. There's a bit more sound,
Oh,
bit of
good point,
something
hang on.
coming through. Okay. So let's take a look at what happens if we take 1 pence doubled every day for a month. So this is the maths. This is the maths behind it. So the £1 million, you know what? Even by the 27th of the month, you'd still be better off taking the £1 million. The magic only happens right at the very end. And if you look down through here, there's very little movement from a penny for the first 20 days of the month. Okay, we're talking thousands, but we're not talking millions here. And you can see that this is a very, very slow growth that takes off big time at the end. And it looks a little bit like this. So what you see here is you can't actually see much difference all the way along here. But in the background, things are moving. And this is the principle of marginal gains. It's really difficult to just go and get this right now, the stuff at the end of the graph. But if you consistently and repeatedly do the right things in the background over time, the right things will take you where you want to be in the end, and eventually you'll get that takeoff. So if you can consistently and regularly do the improvements, then it works. Marginal gains is a really, really powerful theory. It's, as Einstein said about compound interest, for him, it was one of the wonders of the world. When you look at marginal gains and what you put in and what you get out, this is similar for me. So just look at that table. The problem with marginal gains over a period of time is that most people give up somewhere around here. Most people don't see stuff happening, and it's happening too slowly, and there's not enough happening and all that sort of stuff. They give up here, and actually they were on the verge, if they just pushed through, of getting to where they wanted to go. So look at when we talk about making progress, we're not talking about going from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. What we're looking at is understanding what are the consistently great behaviors and activities that you need to do in your business that might look like they're only having a small effect right now, but will eventually take off. So when we look at making progress, it's really important not just to think about we're here at a standing start, we need to go to here. How do we get from one to the other immediately? It's about putting the right things in place in your business to enable this to happen, because most businesses grow by marginal gains. If you look at, I can't remember who it was, but there's a saying that somebody was talking to a very famous person who said, how did you become such an overnight success? Well, the response was, this overnight success has been 30 years in the making. Because what happened was this was going. Then eventually it took off and people noticed what was happening about here, and they only saw this last little bit of the journey. So it really is all about understanding what the few things are, going back to the moving parts of your business, that will start this progress, and then maintaining it to the point where it takes off. Okay, so we make progress. How do we sustain that? How do we make sure that we stay focused on what we're doing? And this, if you like, is the toolkit to what I'm presenting to you today. This slide and the next one, to understand where you want the destination to be, whether it's in a year or whether it's in 3 months, this is how we need to define the goal of where we want to get to. And most businesses, you'll find that you've probably got 4 or 5 goals, probably not more, but 4 or 5 main goals around where you want to be in, say, a year's time. So this particular goal sheet, I'm going to put in the chat box so you can download this once this presentation's finished. I'm also going to give you an Excel spreadsheet for the next slide, so you don't need to worry about trying to take screenshots or writing down what's on here. You can have this at the end of the presentation. But what this does It allows you to get really focused on what the goal is that you're looking to do and why you want to get involved with it. So first of all, let's describe the goal. And I think everybody knows the acronym SMART, but again, it's one of those simple things that most people get, but they don't necessarily do. So your goal needs to be specific. It needs to be measurable. It needs to be achievable. It needs to be results driven. So what results are you looking for? And it needs to be time based. So a goal of we want to grow our turnover is not a goal. A goal that looks more like we are going to increase our turnover from 1,000 now to 10,000 a month in the course of the next 12 months, so that by December 2021, we're turning over 10,000 a month, is much better. It's specific, it's measurable. Achievable depends on the business and the circumstance, but let's assume that one is. It's very focused on the results that you're looking for, and it's time-based because you're going to do it by the end of December. Again, at that point, most people stop, but there's more to this than just defining what your goal is. Next is about, why are we going for this? This is something, a goal is generally something, if it's a good goal that's going to challenge you, stretch you, you're going to need time, energy, money to achieve. It's going to stretch your teams. So why would you go through that? Well, that's what we need to define. What are the benefits of achieving this goal? And you know what? If you can't define many benefits of achieving that goal, you've got to ask yourself, is it the right goal in the first place? Now, that could be benefits to business. It could be benefits to your life, or the personal lives of your team. But whatever it is, you need to understand what the benefits of that goal are. Too many companies I meet have a goal that nobody's really enrolled with. Nobody really understands what it's for, and nobody really gets the benefit of it. It's just one of those things that they have and do. So the next thing we do once we define the goal is to just double check, is that the right goal for us to be pursuing? Whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your business life, what are the benefits? Next, again, most people don't do this, but this is a great way of clarifying thoughts around what might get in your way. If you can list out what are the possible obstacles to achieving this goal, you can also start thinking about, okay, so if that obstacle comes up, if that gets in the way, what are we going to do about it? Because again, a lot of the time we set goals, even if they're great goals, we understand what they are, we understand the benefits. Let's take something really simple. We're coming up to New Year's resolutions about losing weight or getting fit. Loads of people have them. So understanding the goal, making it smart, is quite simple. If you're X kilos now and you need to be at X minus 10 in the period of time, defining that goal is dead easy. The benefits of achieving that goal, most people could work that one out. It's a fairly obvious one. But when we get to possible obstacles, one of the possible obstacles might be the biscuit tin. If you don't deal with that obstacle now, if you don't deal with snacking, if you don't deal with whatever it is right now, then it's going to get in the way and it's going to derail you. And once you're derailed, maybe you'll get back on track, maybe you won't. So start thinking about, what are the possible obstacles and what can we do about that right now? Get rid of the biscuit tin. Make sure there's no snacks in the house, whatever that might be. So understand the goal. Why are we doing this? Is it worth it? What are the possible obstacles? And if we come across those obstacles, what are we going to do about them? And some of those solutions you can put in place before. And then you can start thinking about, okay, so in order to achieve this goal in that time period, understanding why and knowing what obstacles we might come across, what specific actions do we need to take in order to get this goal achieved? Now, what you'll see in here, we've got a space for you to define the action. We've also got an owner in there. Now, this, in a lot of businesses, has got MD, 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 MD written all the way down the owner column. If that's your business and if you have a team, that tells you something as well. It's time to start sharing the load. So specific actions, who's going to do them? When are they going to get done? And did they get done? So this can also be a bit of a tracker. Again, this is simple. It's not rocket science, but it's simple stuff that most businesses don't do. And just by setting it out like this, if you can set this up and you can embed this in a way of working for your business, you will make more progress in a quarter than most businesses make in a year, because you'll stick to your goals and you'll start achieving some of them. And you know what? The first time you do this, this is a different way of thinking, a different way of doing. If you only get to 60%, that's fine the first time. At least you got to 60%. If you hadn't done it, you probably have got to 20. And then as you build the habit, just like we looked at before with the marginal gains thing, it gets better and better and better, to the point where if you use this a lot, you can get to 80, 90% complete. The reason I'm saying 80, 90 and not 100 is if you find that you're getting to 100% complete every time, you probably need to set more challenging goals. So this is one of the tools you can use to start thinking about, okay, we're here now. We want to get to here at the end of 2021. These are the moving parts of our business. So if I've got to move that moving part from here to here, how can I do that? Well, first of all, let's start looking at what the goals are around that movement. The next thing I'm going to show you as a principle.
Can I jump in on the previous one?
Yeah, of course.
I think that one of the hardest things on that sheet is that SMART goal right at the start. I think the number of times I've looked at it and then gone back to the SMART goal again and again. What I did find personally helpful was actually writing it as if it's happened. So by the end of March, I have a new website which is generating 10 inbound referral requests, which therefore means that I have an extra revenue of. So therefore, sort of writing it in future tense as opposed to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're making it concrete. You're making it, if I can, I might get to. You're saying I have done, and you've made it tangible, as opposed to, if we do this, it might turn out that this happens.
Yeah.
That's a good way of thinking about it. It's a really good tip, Andrew. Thank you. This is where we see that people's minds work in different ways, and you're going to have to find out which way your mind works to be able to do this. There's some things that some people recommend that I know don't work for me. So Andrew's just explained how this works for him in terms of setting the goal. Another way that, if you look on YouTube, you see a lot of this, is people tell you to set a really, really unrealistic goal, a goal that's way out there, a goal that is so big that it not only scares you, but you can't see any possible way of doing it. I understand for those people that motivates them to find a way. I also understand that doesn't work for me. That turns me off. However, I do understand how far I need to push that to get me excited about the next step. So when you look at a lot of the stuff that's out there about goal setting, think about it from the context of what gets you going. And Andrew, that's a really good way of putting it, that from your frame of reference, the best way you can define a goal is to actually imagine the future, imagine it's happened, and understand what the outcomes are that you've got from that goal. Now, I don't work that way, but I understand that a lot of people do. So when I set a goal, that doesn't work for me. But there will be a lot of people that will benefit from the way Andrew's just described it. There'll be others that benefit from the way you see on a lot of YouTube clips that say, just put it out there, make it massive, and it will happen. Doesn't work for me. But if it works for you, that's what you need to do. So think about when you do this, when you go through this, how it works for your particular frame of reference. But keep in mind, SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, results-driven, and time-based. So even the big stick it out there and dream it might happen stuff has to be SMART. Okay, so moving on then. This is something that we in Action Coach do with all of our clients. All of my clients do this. They do 90-day planning. There's a reason for this. If you look at, I used to do quite a lot of mountain climbing when I was a kid. And if you think about how that works, you decide which mountain you're going to get to the top of. That's your destination. But most of the time, you don't just set out walking in a straight line from where you are now to the top of the mountain, what you do, you set a route where maybe the first thing you've got to do is walk to the ridge that's going to take you along the ridge to the side of the slope that you then need to climb up. So the first action is to get to the ridge. Your end goal is to get up the mountain, but you can't get up the mountain until you've got up the ridge. So the first goal is to get to the ridge. As you're walking, if you're not walking on paths, generally if you're using a map and a compass, you can understand which direction you need to go in, but you don't walk looking down at the compass. You set a waypoint. So if you know the ridge is a couple of miles in a particular direction, and you've got your map and compass and you're saying which way you want to go and you're working it through on the map, which route you're going to take, once you've got your bearing, you generally fix a point on the horizon to walk to that is on that bearing. So at the moment, we've got the big goal, which is climbing up the mountain. That's your 3 or 5 year goal. We've got the getting to the ridge, which is your 1 year goal, because that's where you have to get to if you want to go up the mountain. And then we've got a waypoint that you walk to, which is a portion of the way to the ridge. So you don't have to permanently be looking down at your compass and your map. The 90-day plan is your waypoint. If you understand that in a year from now, you want to get to this point, then the question for your 90-day plan is, what do we need to do to get a quarter of the way there? So when you have a clear destination of where you want to be in a year, and you start thinking about, okay, so this is the first quarter. So if we want to get to, take the example we did before, from 50 to 150 customers, we need 100 customers. So the first quarter of what we need to do is to understand what kind of customers we're looking for. We need to understand where they hang out. We need to understand why they would want to interact with us. We need to find a mechanism of communicating with them, commonly called marketing. And then we need a way for them to kick the tires of what we've got so they can decide whether it's for them or not, which is your sales process. So if you haven't got that, the first place to start is putting that in place. So your first quarter might not actually be, we're going to get 25 new customers next quarter. It might be doing the work, the marginal gains work that will allow you to build that later on in the year. Whatever it is, it's the first 25% of what you need to do to get where you want to go in a year. The things we've got down the side here, clarity of purpose is important. So where are you going to be in a year? What do you want to do? That's that initial slide we looked at about where's your destination. Then the clarity of the next waypoint, where are we walking to? That's the ridge. Clarity of your next steps. What's your first thing you're going to do? What do you have to walk to first? And that's your 90-day plan. And the discipline to make sure marginal gains, that you're doing the little things that will get you there and have a big impact in 9, 12 months time. So clarity of purpose is the 3-year endpoint. Your next waypoint's a year's progress, and the clarity of your next steps come from the 90-day plan. Your discipline comes from putting this on paper, making it visible, reviewing it, and repeating it. Because in 3 years, you're going to have done 12 90-day plans. If you focus on and achieve each of those 12, you will get to where you want to go in the 3-year time that you want to get there. If you do 4 90-day plans and then stop, there's a strong chance you won't get there. So when we look at this, the 90-day plan is a tool to help you get a quarter of the way further to your year's progress. Your year is where you need to get to if you want to get to your 3rd year. And this is the way to do it. This is what helps marginal gains work. So as I said earlier, this is just a picture of the outcome spreadsheet. What we have within Action Coach, we've got an Excel file that allows you to go and build this up. So it allows you to build your goals. It allows you to understand what obstacles might be getting in the way with the SMART goal sheet. It allows you to think about what are the vital few things. And eventually you come out with a 90-day plan that gives you 3 business and 1 personal goal in terms of what you want to be doing with that in the course of the next 90 days. And as I said before, I will put the previous slide, the SMART goal sheet and the Excel spreadsheet for the 90-day plan in the chat box so that you can download it as soon as we finish this presentation. So that's me about done. I hope that's been useful. It's quite a lot to go through in 3/4 of an hour or so, but I hope it's been useful. And if we've got any comments or questions, we've got time to do that now.
So has anyone got any questions?
I've got.
So when, oh, go on, sorry, go on,
Go on,
Teresa.
Hannah, you go first.
Okay. So when you were looking at the getting it done bit and the skills and fun matrix, I
Yeah.
get that. How do you do it when there's only you for the time being? What
Great
strategies?
question.
What strategies would you put in place? Because you've got to do everything.
Yeah.
To keep your motivation. The stuff I have to do all of that chart. So what would you advise on how? I mean, we know we need staff, but we need
Yeah.
money to get staff to be able to do the delegating bit. So how do you keep motivated when there's just you?
Right. So first of all, what I would say is look really carefully about what's down here. Oh, hang on. There's a noise in the background again.
Oh, I'll go back on mute. Hang on.
Yep, no worries. Look really carefully about what's down here. Most businesses can either stop or outsource some of that. Now, let's go back to cleaning the office. Maybe you do have to pay a cleaner a couple of hours each day to come in, and it's 20 quid to clean the loos and do whatever. If you can't, there might be other people who might be prepared to do that. But whatever it is, look at whether it needs doing. First of all, decide if it definitely needs doing, how else could you get it done? Because the other thing that you need to be able to do is concentrate on these areas, because it's by doing these that you'll be able to outsource these either to another business, another person, or an employee. So yeah, minimize this. There is some stuff here that in most businesses that they could stop doing. Other than that, plan it into your diary at times when it's not going to stop you doing this. So if you know that you're best in the mornings, if you know you're at your best in the morning, some people are morning people, some people are afternoon people, some people are evening people. If you understand yourself and you understand, so I do my best work first thing in the morning, and generally that's when I choose to do this, because if I do more of that faster, I will be able to deal with this. Whoops, sorry. This needs to fit in. If you absolutely have to do it at times when you just get on with it, get it done as quickly as possible, and it doesn't affect this. But generally, I've not yet found a business that can't stop some of this. And I've not yet found a business that can't get some of this done in another way. In your business, it might be volunteers. So really get into understanding what this diagram looks like. Understand what's down here. If you can't stop it, try and find another way to do it. If you can't find another way to do it, don't do it when it's going to affect this, because this is your future. This is how you create the future for your business, Hannah. This is what gets in the way of creating that future if you're not careful. So this needs to go into your diary first. Okay. It can be tough when you're a startup business owner. You do have to do everything yourself. The trick is to get through it as quick as you possibly can so that this can go somewhere else and you can concentrate on this.
I think one of the things I found when I was in that startup position was the fact that accountancy, sitting down, raising the invoices, chasing the debt in the business, doing the bookkeeping, was not my forte. So in doing so, I got a friend who came in, and she volunteered to help on that side of things. And then eventually, we ended up getting an external bookkeeper, and that really got that bit off my plate, which then allowed me to spend that time developing the other areas of the business. So I suppose when I got to the point where I identified stuff, I'd find somebody external who I could outsource it to if I had the money to do so.
That's a great example, Andrew. Let me just use that a little bit because that highlights 3 or 4 of these things. So what you just said, you talked about invoicing, you talked about chasing payments, and you talked about bookkeeping. So if you look at for a small basic business, for a startup business, you can get free accounting software that will do the invoicing and will allow you to set up direct debit payments or credit card payments so that you don't have to chase payment. And that will take away 2 of those tasks. Because once you've set up auto invoicing and once you've got payment collection through a mechanized automated route, you don't have to do 2 of those things. So when I started, for example, I had an RBS bank account, and with RBS and NatWest, you get a little piece of software called Free Agent for free. Now that's no good for larger businesses. It's designed for businesses of 1, 2, 3 people. After that, you need to get paid software like Xero or QuickBooks or Sage or something like that, because your business has got more complex and more technical. But Free Agent for most startups is perfect because it does auto invoicing. It allows you to take automatic payments, and you can probably get away without a bookkeeper if you use the software properly for it. Or at least you get away with get 2 of these little tasks taken away, and then you just have to look out for a bookkeeper. So there are ways of dealing with things, and that's a great example because you threw 3 things in there, 2 of which could be automated, the other one couldn't. But hey, at least if you can get rid of 2, you can then deal with the other one in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yep, that's cool.
Okay, good. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, that's good. So I'm going to stop this share now, but in the chat box, I will upload the 2 documents so that you can download them and take them away with you. Apologies, I do have to leave in about 5 minutes. So
okay,
I'll just
very shortly, so that'll be
quietly sign off if you're still going.
Tell people the next event.
That's okay. But yeah, given that we're a very small group, Hannah, if you do want to talk this through in more detail, just give me a call. I think you've got my phone number anyway, so just give me a ring, and I'd happily spend half an hour with you going through any of this if it's going to help you. Okay, cool. I'll put the stuff in the chat box now. Over to you, Andrew.
Okay, look. Thanks, Mark. So again, thank you ever so much for coming in and sharing that. Again, I said I've personally worked with Mark for several years, and he says just trying to find the right slide. Bum, bum, bum. Thank you. There we go. So yeah, just a quick 5 minutes. So realistically, thanks, Mark, for that. Again, 90-day planning is really, really important. Just so that we do have, it's on Eventbrite. We do have future events coming up, and for some reason my PowerPoint's not stopping. It's just on a roll. So let me just flick back to the last one. So again, we've got this event coming up on the 21st of January, and it's going to be on effectively building your brand. And again, sort of making it why your products might not get out there, your services might not get out there so well. I'll have to change my PowerPoint next time. But anyway, so yeah, join Claire Frogger and myself on that one. And so realistically, I think all in all, that's pretty much it for Digital Cafe. And yeah, so thanks, Mark. And yeah, my PowerPoint's gone completely to pot, and I'm showing my desktop now. That's not such a clever idea. But yeah, I'll leave you with the elephants and say Happy Christmas.
No problem.